When will MMORPGs become popular again? Never? No, they will be. I guarantee you they will be. Nobody has correctly created the formula that makes an MMORPG something more than a game right now. And I think the reason for that, very simply, is I think that there are not tools that exist right now to create an immersive experience that is transformative enough to make MMORPGs have the same impact that they had back in the early 2000s. It is just simply not transformative enough. It will be soon. But yeah, Sword Art Online or something like that. Yeah, tech isn't there yet. It will be. It's only a matter of time. Let's watch the video. I'm very curious to hear what TheLazyPeon's take on this is. Here we go.
Do you miss the glory days of MMORPGs? Back when you were dropped in what felt like a completely unexplored world with infinite possibilities. You spawned into the game for the first time, and there was instantly a feeling of mystery. You'd quest for a bit, see some high levels hanging out near the starting area, wearing their epic gear, and it'd inspire you to keep playing to eventually obtain that same badass gear. Cosmetics from a cash shop and transmog wasn't a thing back then, remember? Every game felt like a new adventure, every character meaningful, with people potentially recognizing you in a capital city within server communities.
That's what would happen with me back in the day. It was fucking awesome. Like, how many of you guys that played WoW like really hardcore would have people invite you on accident whenever they meant to inspect? Like, that was like the biggest fucking ego boost. Holy shit, that was huge. Yeah.
The glory days of MMOs felt so magical because the games were huge, the music was epic, and for most of us, these were our first open world multiplayer experiences. But not all of it is nostalgia. The success of classic WoW iterations and old school RuneScape show that older design philosophies, whilst outdated and used differently nowadays, can still appeal to a large audience. Even the forefathers of MMOs like Ultima Online or EverQuest still see a lot of people going back to the private servers just to experience that classic style of MMO design, where your choices were impactful, progression felt meaningful, and social interaction was more abundant. I'd consider
I think the most thing is the social interaction. I actually think that's the real reason why MMORPGs were successful, and I think it's the real reason why MMORPGs aren't as successful now. Because social media has taken the role that MMORPGs filled for a lot of people.
MMO glory days to be the time period from roughly 1999 to 2012. The release of World of Warcraft in 2004 elevated this time period significantly though. These years, starting from Ultima Online, EverQuest, RuneScape to WoW, and so many more that I can't list, created a highly competitive, and most importantly, incredibly motivated market. People loved MMOs, and developers wanted to be a part of this new virtual world phenomenon. Just from 2004 to 2005, 31 new MMORPGs were released, ranging from those.
Back in the day, MMORPG was like the battle royale of gaming. Everybody wanted to have the big new MMORPG. It's actually crazy to think about, but it was pretty much the exact same.
And Metin 2 to World of Warcraft and Guild Wars 1. In 2021, we saw Elion and New World release. Elion died pretty much instantly, and New World has had its fair share of struggles, to say the least. In 2022, we've only really had Lost Ark. Throne and Liberty by NCSoft was supposed to release at the end of the year, but is delayed till 2023.
The beginning
as an
of
MMO content creator, I've really had to
said.
Scrape the bottom of the barrel the past few years. I kind of feel like...
For me, I feel like in the last year or so, I've had really no problem trying to find content. Like, I actually haven't found any real struggle with that, because there's been a lot of games that... The thing is with me is, like, I also play the games, like, pretty seriously. Like, I don't just play the story and then quit the game. I'll try to actually, like, complete all of the content in the game, and then I'll be done with it. I think that's probably why it takes more time for me to finish it.
MMOs peaked around WoW's Wrath of the Lich King expansion that saw a peak sub count of 12 million players.
That's a lot of people.
And this was at a time when way less people had access to PCs capable of running large MMO-like games.
It was a big thing.
In today's gaming market, if we had a new MMO phenomenon as big as WoW was at its peak, surely that player count would be at least double due to the growth of gaming as a whole. So what happened? And what would need to happen to MMOs for us to go through another time period where MMORPGs are the hype genre again? Where every dev is jumping on the bandwagon trying to cash in on their own MMO, like from 2004 to 2012. Are we, the players, the problem? Is corporate greed just taking over? Or are younger gamers with their shorter attention spans just not into MMO's long-winded progression?
I disagree with that. I completely disagree with the idea that kids these days can't sit down and grind in a video game anymore. I completely disagree, because the fact is that whenever those same fucking boomers that are 43 now said that about us whenever we were in high school and we wanted to play WoW instead of EverQuest or Ultima Online. And now we're saying it about the kids nowadays that are playing Fortnite. So I don't think it's that simple.
We'll get into all of that, but first, sponsor. Infinite Magic Raid is the newest and biggest idle RPG hero collector of 2022. Enter the Lows continent, a fantasy world with charming, stylized graphics, full of mystery, magic, and evil to defeat. To begin your adventure, you'll need a team of heroes, and in Infinite Magic Raid there's over 200 of them spread across 10 factions, each with their own unique skills, personality, and high-quality 3D model. Whilst easy to learn...
I wish these games are actually like, I wish they were more involved. I feel like a lot of the times, like, what's always sad whenever I see one of these mobile games is, like, I know it's, like, usually, like, an idle RPG type thing. I wish that they were actually, like, just, like, an open world type game. Yeah.
An Infinite Magic Raid has highly strategic battles
5-star
in which you'll
SSR.
need to learn how to build an effective team composition to counter your enemies. Some heroes synergize better together than others. Will you build a burst comp to nuke down enemies in seconds, or will you outlast them by using more tanks and healers? Infinite Magic Raid is packed with content, from competitive PvP arena to a sprawling main campaign, fun minigames, dispatch missions, and most notably, the dungeons, which feature roguelike map exploration and plot development.
That's cool.
Consistency will be the key to success in this game. Play every day to collect AFK rewards, cultivate and challenge increasingly difficult enemies until you reach the top. Click the link in the description below to play Infinite Magic Raid now, and use gift code IM777 to get a ton of rewards displayed on screen that will give you a big advantage over anyone who didn't see this video. Download now.
I think that there's a lot of those, like, phone games. I just wish that there was, like, more to it, you know? It's disappointing because, like, I don't know. I think it would be nice if those games were, like, more involved. Oh, these are all the MMOs that are dying? Oh no. Wow.
For the past few years, MMO releases have felt something like this. A new game comes out, everyone's excited and hyping it up pre-launch.
Then check this out.
What is Eternum?
Damn it!
Because even if the game sucks long term, that new MMO feeling is always fun for a while.
That's what I always tell people. Is like, I had fun playing Tower of Fantasy whenever everybody was playing it. I did, I had fun. I had fun playing New World whenever everybody was playing it. Yeah, the honeymoon phase. Well, it's like, that's not really a bad thing. I mean, fuck. You know, honeymoon phase, just pump and dump it, man. Play it, and when it's not fun, quit. It's fine with me.
Maybe you get your old gaming group back together for launch, book some time off work, and within a week or two, the cracks have already started to show, and the game's bleeding players.
Speaking of this, I actually am curious to see if TheLazyPeon will do a video following up on some of the changes that have been made to New World. Because I do think that it's a very substantial development that the game has been growing. I consider that a tremendous development. It's actually one of the first times, like, when was the last time that really happened with an MMO? Like Final Fantasy? I can't think of any other game. Maybe WoW, like after they made some changes in like 9.25, but we don't have any data for that. I'm just guessing.
After going through this
ESO?
cycle over and over
Maybe
again,
so. I didn't play
you start to get a sense of guilt that the time you scheduled off work probably could have been spent better with friends, family, or an actual vacation. But instead you just wasted your time on another failed MMO, making you more and more jaded. New MMO releases nowadays almost never see a growing player base after launch.
Nope.
It felt like MMOs during this time period did a much better job at retaining players and even gaining players. In recent years, the only MMO I can think of that's actually managed to gain players is Final Fantasy XIV.
It's hard for me to say if Final Fantasy XIV is growing in players now. I would probably say not. Maybe the new, the new Savage tier came out. They brought out those island sanctuaries. So there's definitely more content going on. But if you view any of these Steam charts as a data point or any sort of a data indicator, then that would not be the case.
Meet you, you magnificent bastards!
Are people just fundamentally bored of the MMO formula? Why do so many games feel empty and repetitive? What's happened to us, and how has game design changed in the last 20 years? Well, for one, we have changed.
I think that's the big difference, is people are looking back at a time whenever they were more naive and they couldn't see the wizard behind the machine. They were, I've said this 100 times, right? It's like people are nostalgic for being a young, naive kid more than they are nostalgic for any specific game. Final Fantasy on Steam is dwarfed by other platforms that use it. So if you take an apple pie and you take a slice out of the apple pie, what type of pie is the slice? It's still an apple pie. So if you take a slice out of the player base that is substantial, this is over 10,000, 20,000 people, and you draw a conclusion from that, I think that's a relative thing that you can extrapolate to the entire population of the game. It's not that the number is accurate, it's that the trend in players is probably somewhat accurate.
Like a pack of rabid dogs, we're jumping on every nugget of information whenever a new MMO is announced. Early access, oversharing development updates, and open betas get us excited for the adventures to come, but also allow us to explore the world, theory craft builds, and map out leveling routes, so by the time a new MMO has fully released, we're ready to min-max the ever-living shit out of it.
Of course.
Less people played games that way back in the day. Do you remember being excited to get your first pair of shoulders back in vanilla WoW?
Yes.
They looked like a rug at best and gave you nothing but armor. But to
we were so stupid about min-maxing. Like my guild, we made our Shadow Priest use Atiesh all the way through Burning Crusade, and nobody would give him an upgrade until the staff from fucking Illidan dropped. Because mathematically, the spell power bonus that the priest Atiesh provided to the rest of the other party members was a larger overall gain in raid DPS than him using a new staff himself. So nobody gave him any fucking gear for the entirety of Burning Crusade. And this was in 2007. So we were min-maxing this shit at the very beginning. So I think that there's a lot of people, again, this is what I was saying before, is that they didn't know anything about the game. They were fucking garbage. So I was garbage. Like, I remember I thought you needed 2 Warlocks on Curator so you could have Curse of Doom expire whenever he went into vulnerability phase to kill the boss. I joined that guild that didn't give him the other weapons. They didn't even know what I was talking about. So there was a massive amount of people out there who min-maxed back then. It's just that the community was a lot smaller and many people were not part of it back then. There wasn't the internet sharing all the information. Elitist Jerks was specifically designed on math. Yes. You get laughed out of the forums unless you brought in data to support your min-max argument. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, like everybody in my guild had an account on there. 100 fucking %. It goes without saying.
Fill that empty slot after days of progress felt amazing. I bet there were times where you'd stray from the path just to kill random mobs in the world. Not because they were optimal XP, but because it was new and it looked at you funny.
I'm gonna kick your ass.
We haven't even touched on data mining yet, but let's just call this overarching change information pollution. The moment info is leaked or discovered, it's shared in the form of YouTube videos, Twitch live streams, tons of different guide websites, and word of mouth.
Yeah.
This will not go away, and yes, I understand that I'm part of the problem here. Nowadays, there's much more of a financial incentive for people to create websites with in-depth guides on every aspect of an MMO. Achieving world's first max level whilst live streaming on Twitch could potentially kick off a streaming career, and sponsors would happily pay thousands of dollars for a 90-second.
That's true. Sponsors would pay for somebody who got the world first. But those sponsors would still drop him after he stole a staff. So, I mean, shit. You live by the sword, die by the staff.
Ad on a gaming video with a few 100k views. MMO developers need to find a way to make their games with enough complexity that simply watching guides won't...
By the way, they did him a favor with, like, what happened. It's kind of funny how everything seemed to work out.
...necessarily make you succeed. Compared to older games, modern MMOs typically have a much more casualized open world and overall experience, to the point where going out and exploring doesn't feel dangerous. Unless you're inside a raid or doing some instanced challenge mode content, monsters in the world are usually trivial.
I think that they were always trivial for the most part, it's just that people were fucking garbage. Like, I rock around in Classic WoW, I never worry about anything. I was an elite over there, walk around them, who gives a fuck them? Fuck them, I know what I'm doing. Like, yeah, like, we were just way fucking better at the game. Like, that's the thing, we're way better fucking at the game. It's that simple. Ultimate Online EverQuest, well, I mean, I don't know about every game. But I'm saying, like, that's the way it was in WoW. Like, in WoW, it's like back in the day, you thought, like, oh, this shit was scary. You come back later in Classic, and it's just like, okay.
Contrast this to EverQuest back in the day, where random mobs roaming the world would often require multiple players to take down. Developer time is often wasted by focusing on brainless target dummies across the world in which killing them makes you feel absolutely nothing. If I attack a humanoid in WoW Classic, it will run away at low health, which not only makes sense realistically, but also makes you think about executing targets, or just simply not pulling monsters inside huge camps. Most games don't even think about simple interactions like that anymore. In the pursuit of accessibility, MMOs have kinda lost their sense of accomplishment, during the leveling anyway. Also, is it me or...
I think that the sense of accomplishment during leveling, let me think about that. So, what game did I feel accomplished whenever I hit max level on? I felt pretty good whenever I got 60 in Lost Ark. Yeah, I felt pretty good about that, but it was more or less like just a box to check off. New World, I didn't really give a shit. Because I had already hit 60 twice before then whenever the game came out. Because I got on beta and the preview. And, yeah, I'm trying to think, like, the last time I really felt good about getting max level. Maybe Classic WoW? Maybe.
Did older MMOs just feel bigger? Larger worlds, longer time to get to max level, more races, professions, dungeons, mob types and quest lines? Have developers put less effort into making their MMOs ambitious due to so many failing over the years, and it being considered more risky to make an MMO compared to any other gaming genres from a financial perspective? Games are made as a product nowadays more so than ever. Data analysis are at the forefront with market and consumer.
I think that games are always made as a product. Like, all those companies that were making MMORPGs in 2003 were doing it to make money. They were doing it because EverQuest was making money. Ultima Online was making money. This has always been the case.
Consumer behavior studied to maximize player engagement and profit. Most MMOs from 1999 to 2012 used a subscription fee business model with no cash shop.
Yeah.
This incentivized developers to make the game as good as possible, constantly pumping out updates to keep people handing over money every month because they enjoy the game. This was fine until some developers realized they could take a different approach and see much larger profits. The free-to-play model, aka create problem to sell solution. For this to be successful, you want to create a low skill floor at the start of the game so players don't quit. In sub-fee MMOs, players are more likely to persist with difficulty because they've already paid the money and have committed to invest time into that game. Once a player is sufficiently invested into a free-to-play MMO, you can start to introduce the little annoying systems or inconvenience them in some way. Boring dailies, lack of inventory space, have every in-game obtainable outfit look like arse, cap the amount of dungeon entries you can do, the list goes on and on. At that point, you can then sell them the solution.
Yeah, I got I remember in Black Desert, I got to level 50, and then I looked on the store and they had like this armor set that looked 1,000 times cooler than anything that I had looted, and it was like $15 and it gave me 10% more experience, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy this. And it was like, I did that a few times and I was like, this is dumb, I'm not gonna play this anymore.
This is why games like Lost Ark have such arbitrary leveling experiences. It's simply to create a cheap feeling of investment so that players are more likely to spend money on the cash shop later on. Free-to-play MMOs have put developers against the players by making it financially beneficial to create problems to sell solutions. Where
I will 100% agree with that. Any game that has pay for convenience just incentivized inconvenience, because now they make money whenever the game's inconvenient. That's the worst fucking, spread the poison and sell the cure. That's what happens. It's what happens in Lost Ark. It's what happens in Tower of Fantasy. It's what's happened in many games. Yeah, Phaons in Lost Ark. Like, why is this in the game? No other game fucking needs this. Why do we need this? It's just wasting people's money.
As the old sub-fee MMOs, the developers are incentivized to give players the best game possible to keep them subscribed. For me, this is the biggest reason why MMOs from 1999 to 2012 just felt different. The business model just allowed these games to attempt to be the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, imagine
Whilst
that.
modern MMO monetization sounds greedy and malicious, it often is, by the way.
Yeah.
When I look out over the next decade, I see more opportunity for our company than I...
To play devil's advocate, it's bloody expensive to make an MMORPG. More so than any other genre of game.
Oh,
Some
absolutely.
MMOs have taken 7 to 9 years of development time to make, and cost close to $200 million. Many failed MMOs never made back their development costs in revenue before being shut down. So with many examples of failures over the past few years, there's increased pressure from investors for a company to make back that money as quickly as possible, even if it damages the integrity of the game in the process. Think about it. Why would you invest 50 to 100 mil over 7 years to make an MMO that may or may not be successful, when you could invest less than 1 mil to make a mobile game that will probably see you 10x your investment within 2 years?
I was just about to use this as an example, actually. That's a really good fucking transition. So yeah, look at Diablo Immortal. Diablo Immortal was like no fucking... there was no real investment of money that Blizzard put into that game compared to how much money they're making out of it. Like, look at how much... I mean, I guarantee you it took a lot more fucking effort to make Diablo 3 than Diablo Immortal. But just think about that. Boo.
You guys want half phones?
Unfortunately, as gaming monetization has changed, the risk versus reward just isn't there for MMO investment nowadays like it used to be back when it was the hype genre. So is there any hope? Will we ever see MMOs become the hype bandwagon genre again? Is the fantasy of what's portrayed in Sword Art Online, Ready Player One, or Overlord a real possibility in the future?
I think that the success of things like Ready Player One, Sword Art Online, Overlord, and, you know, like other things that are related to that, I think that it indicates that people like the aesthetic of it. They like the ideal of it. It's just that there's no game that really can create that type of a real-life experience. You see what I'm saying? Like, there are many times where, you know, like a show like that is extremely popular and everybody likes it, but it's just not, like, nobody can create that in real life yet.
Or would those games actually be ruined by pay-to-win in reality? Well, as for the short term, we actually do have a few MMOs in development by massive teams. You've got the Riot MMO, Soulframe by Digital Extremes. As much as New World hasn't lived up to the hype, at the very least it's improving, adding new content, and still isn't pay-to-win. And you've also got the possibility of successful entrepreneurs who are passionate about the genre, making their own MMOs, as we've seen with Ashes of Creation. Maybe one of those games will absolutely pop off and more studios will jump on the bandwagon to appeal to the new generation of MMO gamers.
I don't really think that we're going to have another game like World of Warcraft, because I think that you need to have an MMO that has a level of immersion that exists in a way that we're probably not even aware of now. Like, I think that there is something that's missing right now from these games to make them truly immersive again. Whether it's VR, some sort of neural link, some sort of other fucking amalgamation between the two, I'm not sure. But I think that you need to have something more.
If that doesn't happen, we're surely going to reach the point with AI and technology that MMOs just become easier and easier to make. Unreal Engine 5 has made significant improvements to the development pipeline of games. There's a worry that AI-generated art is going to ruin the art industry. And computers are still becoming more powerful every year. Perhaps one day in the future we can just tell AI what we want in a game, and it will be able to do hundreds of hours of artwork, asset design, and coding within a few minutes.
That's smart, I like that.
Vastly reducing the amount of time it takes to actually make an MMO, the costs associated with it, and as a result improving the risk versus reward of such a venture for investors.
I think that's a big factor. Is like having things that are procedurally generated, or to some degree generated more quickly than they can be min-maxed, I think is super important. Because like right now in MMOs, whenever something comes out, it takes a long time, it gets hyper min-maxed, and then that's it. So if you can make content faster than that, then it's good.
I think this is all just a matter of time, really. If we got to that point and it became easy to make MMOs, perhaps they would become less pay to win due to there being more competition in the market. But honestly, that's just pure hopium on my part. I'm not sure it's possible to put the monetization genie back in the bottle at this point. So let's just say we do see MMOs become the hype genre again. What would those games look like? Would they be...
I do think that if people had the option to play a game with and without monetization, people would probably choose the game without monetization. I think that also, like, even if they wouldn't choose it at the beginning, they would probably come around to it. Because games with monetization, they run their course more quickly. So if you reduce the amount of cost to, like, enter into the market, then it's easier for somebody to enter into the market without a game that's hyper monetized.
Drastically different to MMO design of old, or would they go back to a more classic design?
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Will developers ever be able to solve rampant RMT in almost every game? Is it possible to develop a new MMO and have it not be completely ruined by data mining before it's fully released?
Yes.
And what kind of MMO would actually appeal to today's meta-mentality gaming audience? Thick ass thighs. Truthfully, I don't think we know the answer. But it's probably a game that's able to play to the strengths of what made people fall in love with MMOs in the first place. The idea of an alternate reality, a second life where you escape from your day job, a game that can make you feel invested over a long period of time due to overcoming adversity, and a game designed in a way where the developers aren't acting against the interests of the players for profit. I want to see the next big MMO bring back that sense of awe you had when you saw a player on the server with some crazy legendary item that nobody else has.
I think that the reason why it's hard to have that level of awe for me is that I am very good at breaking down processes. And the majority of the processes that you have to go through to obtain items like this are not a test of skill. It is a test of logistics, time, and investment. That's really what it is.
A game that brings back social interaction, friction between players, and a good mix of content from casual to ultra hardcore.
Yeah.
Remember back in the day when MMOs were so popular that you'd actually see ads for them on mainstream TV?
That's just like MapleStory. The free online game where you get to hang out with friends and experience the out of the ordinary.
What the fuck is this?
By the way, what the
Seems
hell
good to
happened
me.
with all the badass PvP montages from back in the day?
I'll tell you exactly what happened. They're not financially lucrative to do. You can make a badass PvP montage, spend 100 hours editing it, and it will get 200,000 views. And you can spend 30 minutes talking about a video game, and it will get 100,000 views. It's just simply more efficient for people that, and this is the thing, right? And also you get demonetized for music. That's another big factor. That's what it is.
Why don't people make them anymore? Invest in the players, invest in the world,
Yeah, it's not
invest in
efficient.
social interaction and organic content. If the players can create their own fun, overcome their own challenges, then waiting for the next roller coaster ride to release every 6 months won't feel so draining and repetitive. How do long-term WoW or Final Fantasy players not completely burn out of their games? Guilds, friend circles, roleplay, completionism, raiding, and PvP, most of which include some sort of social interaction. Allow the players to create their own storylines.
I'm a paladin with 18 charisma and 97 hit points. I can use my Helm of Disintegration and do 1d4 damage as my half-elf mage wields his +5 Holy Avenger.
Paladins can't use the Helm of Disintegration.
Drama between guilds fighting for territory, full-time crafters, gatherers, full-focused raiders, a ruthless PvP gladiator, or maybe I could make a name for myself ERPing in some degenerate player-made dungeon for coin.
I think it's a social attraction is what really makes it appealing for people.
Ultimately, I guess the question is, will players adapt to a more modern approach to MMOs, or is it old-school design philosophy that will prevail in the end? When will the glory days of MMOs return?
I also think the escapism is an issue. Because, like, now you have, like, streaming and, like, everybody knows who everybody is in real life in the game. And I do think that definitely hurts the escapism of an MMORPG.
Only time will tell.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Let me know what you think about the future of MMORPGs in the comments below. Smash that like button whilst inhaling an unhealthy dose of hopium for the algorithm gods.
That's about right.
And social media on screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Okay, I think this is a decent video. I do. I like the video. LazyPeon always makes some pretty good ones. Make sure to give him a sub, give the video a like. It came out recently, so it'll definitely help the guy out. I liked it. I did. I think that there are a lot of other factors, but I think that also, like, having like your Twitter connected to your MMO account and things like this, they do hurt the immersion of these games. They do make these games less of a fantasy world and more or less a just different canvas for people to do the same things they do in real life. And I think that's true with social media. That's true with YouTubers and streamers. And I think that one of the very, very appealing things of old MMOs was the idea of escapism, the idea of like getting and playing and getting and being part of a world that is not your own. You know, like you're playing a game. This is not your own game. This is actually, you know, like this is not you. This is your character. This is what your character would do. And there's like a certain amount of RP that goes into that. And I think that there's like, in terms of like role play, I think that there is a very large spectrum of roleplay in MMOs. And right now, I think that it's very hard to have any level of that spectrum. And I think that's another reason why the MMOs really don't have the same type of stick that they did before. And I think that's also why Final Fantasy does. It's because Final Fantasy does still have a very strong, like kind of, I guess I could say like tendency towards a type of RP with like the way that your characters look and the way that you act in the game. And it's like you have people that you've always got the super mega omega RPers, right? And these are the ones that are like, you know, my name is Drak4 and I'm from, you know, the flaming mountains of, you know, wherever the fuck. And, you know, I'm a warrior, etc. But you also have a lot of people who act different in the game than their personality is in real life. And I would argue that I think that is an RP. I think that it's on the spectrum of RP. And the problem now is that it's very hard to even have anything on that spectrum. That's just, you know, yeah, they pretend to be girls. They pretend to be somebody else entirely sometimes. But it's also like a merging, or sorry, like a disconnect between your personality and your demeanor in real life versus in the game. You know what I mean? Those people are definitely on the spectrum. I think that there's a lot of people that act that way. And I actually don't think that it's weird. It's that people act different. It's like, you know, give a person a mask, they'll show you their real face. I think it's very defined. A lot of times people have talked about this. It's not crazy at all. That's why D&D is successful. False self theory. Yeah. It's like a fake version of themselves, and they can be this other version of themselves. Absolutely. It's creativity and imagination. I think it's also people that feel like they're repressed in real life and they can be this person in the game. And I think that's like having the connections to real life that the games have now. And it's so ubiquitous. It's just, that's all there is to it, right? It's every game has this stuff, right? They even have like in the game, follow us on Twitter, follow us on all this stuff, right? So there's no disconnect anymore. No more disconnects. Why is it never a hot girl pretending to be my druid bro so she can romance me? I don't know, man. I've been wondering the same thing. Most games are limited what people can immerse themselves into. Tabletop games are becoming more and more popular. I think that tabletop games are, I don't know if they're really becoming more and more popular. I don't know. I think there's always going to be people that like doing tabletop games. I sometimes I like it, but like not really. It's very finicky whether I'm going to like something like that or not. But I do think that you need to have the real sense of immersion with games like this. And I think whenever you do have a game like that, I feel like that's going to be much stronger.